So recently, while playing Battlefront 2, I wanted to do something I haven't really done in the past in the game, which is play as the Specialist class. The Specialist was my least used class in Battlefront 2. I've never put too much time into playing as the Specialist, always felt like it was kind of a weaker class, and since most of the maps in Battlefront 2 are focused on mid to short range gameplay, never really understood a use for the Specialist. But recently, my opinion of this class has changed, since DICE added some new weapons and a few things changed. I think it can be an incredibly powerful and effective class if used the right way, but it still lacks certain abilities and features that I'd want to see brought to Battlefront someday. Hey everyone, it's Andrew, and today I'm going to take an in-depth look at the Specialist, go over which abilities and weapons work best for the Specialist, and why I still think this class needs an overhaul to be more competitive in Battlefront 2. There are times I feel the Specialist is still weak and outmatched for a number of different reasons, so I'm going to go over what's good, what's working, and what needs to be buffed or fixed to make this a more popular class. To be honest, this is the least used class I see people playing as in Battlefront 2, and I don't think that's because people don't like sniping. It's to do with what the Specialist brings to a game, how this class matches up against other classes, and why you can consistently be at a disadvantage. Sniper rifles aren't supposed to be weak, but they kind of feel like they are in this game, but I'll get onto all of that. So one thing that changed recently for the Specialist was the new weapon, the Cycler Rifle, and since that was added to the game, I've seen a lot more people playing as this class. Before that, it might have only been 1 or 2 people per match in a game of Supremacy, and the reason more people are playing as this class now is because of this weapon. To unlock the Cycler Rifle, you had to defeat 50 enemies as the Specialist class in co-op, and then to unlock the weapon mods needed to get 25, 75, and 100 kills using this weapon, which encouraged more people to play as the Specialist because everyone wants the Cycler. The Cycler Rifle is a nostalgic weapon, being one of the more powerful star cards in 2015 Star Wars Battlefront, so I think that influenced a lot of people to go and unlock it for Battlefront 2. However, if you've seen my detailed video about the Cycler or tested the weapon out yourself, you'll know that it's only a shadow of the original. It's weak, underpowered, and takes 2, 3, sometimes more hits to get a kill. Even a headshot isn't a one-hit kill with this thing, which for a sniper rifle that's supposed to be a projectile weapon is a problem. The only way to use the Cycler somewhat successfully is to unlock the reduced recoil and improved cooling weapon mods, and combine it with your infiltration and personal shield cards, and even then, if you missed your first couple of shots, you're at a huge disadvantage. It's too difficult to secure a kill, and it really needs a buff. I think we all know. Everyone wants a buff. Let's get a buff for this thing, come on. However, I recently learned that this weapon, the NT242, delivers on what the Cycler Rifle falls short of. So like I said at the start of this video, I had rarely played as a Specialist class, and as a result, hadn't unlocked some of the higher tiered weapons and gadgets. The NT242 requires 500 Specialist kills to unlock, and over the past few weeks playing co-op using the Cycler Rifle, I finally achieved this, finally! Some of you seem to think it was pretty funny I hadn't unlocked it yet. I posted this one on Twitter and was either congratulated or mocked for it taking so long. I mean, I don't blame you though. But 500 kills with the class that's underpowered is honestly hard to achieve, so even I'm kind of proud of myself for getting there. I was persistent. Now, even though I'd never used the NT, I knew it was the most powerful sniper in the game, although with a slow rate of fire. But to be honest, when using the weapon myself, the slow rate of fire didn't really bother me, because the first shot could be so powerful that it did the job right from the start. If you hit your shots with this thing, they really hit. A headshot is a kill guaranteed. This is a little different if you're shooting at some of the reinforcement classes or at a hero, but even against some of the heavier buffer reinforcements like the Wookiee Warrior, I find the NT to have sufficient stopping power to take them out in 2 or 3 shots. I honestly couldn't believe it. The NT also has no damage drop off at any range, so whether you're 10 or 1,000 meters away from your enemy, it'll do the same damage. Up until this point, I'd completely written off the Specialists, thought their weapons were weak, and none of their star cards were good enough for me to want to use this class. But after discovering the power of the NT, my opinion has changed. This thing can compete. But the Specialist class still has some issues, some stuff that I think needs to be addressed. So first of all, I want to look at their star cards, give you some thoughts on the ones I use and why, but why I still think the class needs a major overhaul. So Battlefront Battlefront 2's maps are quite different to Battlefront 1's, in the sense they're more designed to suit mid to close range combat. There are only a few actual long range maps in the game, one of them being Crate, but even this leads into becoming more of a corridor shooter in the underground tunnels and towards the rebel base side of the map. But I'm sure you remember, if you played it, Battlefront 1's maps were much larger, open. Maps like Hoth and Tatooine, Jakku, each of which definitely had elements of close quarters combat, but as a sniper, you could thrive on these maps. There were multiple vantage points, parts of the map you'd have to make a dash for it across an area with minimal to no cover, leaving you open for attack from a sniper. I always found they were much more playable as mid to long range maps, which is why snipers could work so well, and star cards such as the cycle rifle and pulse cannon were so popular. So now let's look at Battlefront 2's maps. Closed, indoors, multiple choke points, flanking routes. They're much more suited to the other three classes in the game, Assault, Heavy, and Officer, each of which possess more firepower at mid to close range. And this is intentional. Battlefront 2's maps were designed with the class system in mind, which is why they've even given the Specialist class a bunch of short-range weapons. First up is Infiltration, where you can switch to an EE4 burst fire submachine gun, dealing high damage at short range. Next, the CA-87 shotgun. In this game it's called the Repulsor Cannon, which only works at very close range and will knock enemies back off their feet, kind of like a weaker force push. Even the Stinger pistol, though you can shoot it at range, is a pistol. That's 3 additional short-range weapons you can attach to a class that's supposed to be sniper long-range focused. And the map design of Battlefront 2 has also contributed to the design of each of the specialist sniper rifles. Take the A280 CFE, low damage output, high rate of fire. It's a mid-range sniper. But even at that range, why would you go with this, a sniper, over an LMG with a heavy class or an assault weapon? The answer is you wouldn't. But in an attempt to balance the specialist with the maps and other classes, all of their weapons fall short, except the NT242. In my opinion, this is the only real sniper rifle in the game, the only one that's capable of competing with the other classes' much faster weapons if used at distance, because it deals way more damage. But that's not the only issue. The specialist also starts with the same amount of health as the assault and officer, but less health than the heavy, which is kind of normal for a class system, but when their weapons can't necessarily make up for that disadvantage in health, they're at least supposed to have the advantage of distance. In Battlefront 2's mid to close range maps, you don't always have that advantage, and when you find yourself in a skirmish or in a 1v1 against a heavy or an assault, it's hard to survive because you're less effective at this range. And that's why I always equip the personal shield with the specialist class, because when you get into encounters like this, and you will, this is possibly the only thing that's going to allow you to survive. And yes, it's a very defensive ability, and it's not like you can switch on the personal shield and keep attacking like the heavy class can do with their weapon shield, but it will allow you to get yourself out of danger and back up or flank into a position where you might have that advantage of distance you want using the NT242. Once you unlock this weapon's improved cooling, in my opinion, this is the only sniper worth using as this class. So can you successfully play as the specialist? And how can this class be fixed? Well, in my opinion, you can still definitely have success using the specialist if you're wielding the upgraded NT242 and personal shield. Yes, you're still going to be at a disadvantage at close range, and there'll be more indoor maps where it might not be worth playing as this class, but you can still make it work. The NT is powerful enough to earn you some kills, and honestly does a better job of finishing enemies that even some of the assault and heavy weapons struggle with. Like I said, I found it to be especially effective against reinforcement classes, just because it has such a high damage output. It's just all about keeping your distance and knowing where you're most powerful from. Don't get up close, because your enemy's firepower is going to defeat you. So instead, hang back a little, try stay out of sight, and use this thing how it's meant to be used. And if you still haven't unlocked it, if you're still lagging behind on upgrading the specialist like I was, don't be ashamed, it's okay. I know there's some of you out there. I'd recommend just playing co-op, because at least you're against bots and you have a slight advantage, and on some maps like Kessel, where so many enemies spawn from one location, you can keep aiming in that direction and rack up some easy kills. In terms of other cards, Infiltration is pretty much a must, just because there'll be times you'll be forced into close quarters combat, and this is the only weapon that's going to give you a chance at this range. I personally like using the version of Infiltration called Hardened Infiltration, which gives you a small amount of damage reduction when being attacked while while this ability is active, around 31% less damage from what I've seen online. This at least makes up for you being more exposed at close range as the specialist. You can take a little less damage. And as for your left ability, I honestly rarely use it, and have found this doesn't make much of a difference. Probably just go with the Stinger pistol, so at least you can try deal a little extra damage with its poison effect if you feel like changing things up and switching to it, or the improved shock grenade, which at least gives you something to throw, but I've always found neither of these do enough damage or are effective enough to consistently use. Just make sure you upgrade your cards once you level up your class. You need to get as much firepower as possible, so play with those purple cards. One other thing to improve the class is to use the Expert Weapons Handling perk, which improves your weapon cooldown time, essential if you have a sniper with a slow rate of fire. This is going to help you fire off more shots in a shorter amount of time. And in terms of how the specialist can be fixed, I think it should start with the left ability. Even just having a regular grenade or thermal detonator, I think would drastically improve this class, just to give them a little more firepower at short to mid range, so you can throw the grenade, then start shooting while your enemies duck for cover. Also, a little bit of a health buff I feel would go a long way, or a damage buff some of the other snipers. Headshots should be kills guaranteed, and this isn't the case at the moment. What type of shooter has snipers that headshots aren't one-hit kills? I don't understand that. To me, that's strange. And to improve some of the other snipers, such as the cycler rifle, I think replacing one of the weapon mods with something like a piercing shot, which you can turn on and off, would make a huge difference. Maybe this could deal a little extra damage and also go through shields. I feel even something small and simple like this could make this class more competitive with the others. And all of that said, I've really enjoyed playing as the specialist class over the past couple of weeks, and although it has been frustrating at times, have enjoyed it as a challenge. And yes, I would love to see some of the class's weapons buffed or some new abilities introduced and tweaks made to improve the class, but even if that doesn't happen, now that I've unlocked the NT242, I can see myself coming back to play as this class over and over again. And remember, all of this is just my personal opinion, which is why I'd love to hear your thoughts on this class. Do you use it often? Do you have success with it? And do you use any of the other specialist weapons? Let me know in the comments. And like I said before, I made an in-depth video looking at the cycler rifle and comparing it to Battlefront 2015 cycler, so if you haven't seen that, you can watch that here, along with my look at the old Scarif maps from Battlefront 2015. And I've been posting about Battlefront and Star Wars on my Twitter and Instagram, so go follow me on those platforms, and also join my Discord community to come hang out and chat more about Star Wars games. All of those links are in the description. Let me know your thoughts anyway. I would love to hear what you guys think about this one. But thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon.
Stay bombastic.